Hey guys, welcome back, and today I have another review and swatch fest for you. Maybelline just relaunched a whole bunch of eyeshadows. So these are called the new Maybelline New York Expert Wear Eyeshadow Singles. So they look like this. They retail, I've seen them anywhere from $2.50 to $4 depending on where you purchase them. I got mine at Walgreens. I walked in, I had $50 in like extra bonus bucks that I could spend, so I got the whole collection. I picked up all 20 because I wanted to review them for you. I knew that these would be like the Milani Bella eyes a couple years ago, where they were going to be very, very hot items, and everybody was going to be rushing out to get them. So I wanted to share some thoughts on you. I have pretty much tried out all of these eyeshadows. There are a few that I have not put on my eyes, but for the most part I've tried almost every single one, so I feel like I have a good idea of how they apply, how they wear, and how they perform, and if they're worth the money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut to the swatching part of this video. For each one, if I feel that there's a comparable shadow in like the Milani Bella Eyes collection, I'm going to kind of focus on that one in particular, that one in the L'Oreal, just because I want to show you some comparisons in case you already have some of those in your collection. You can see how they perform, or you can see if maybe there's a better one out there. So yeah, so if you want to see all 20 of these eyeshadows swatched and compared, then stick around. Alright guys, again, we're just going to take it shadow by shadow, and I'm going to do some comparisons and just some swatches. So the first shade we have is number 10. This is Soft Pearl. I love this one. I've used this one a bunch on the inner corner as a brow bone highlight, and I'm actually also wearing it today as a highlight for my face. Very, very beautiful. It doesn't look like much, but it just gives the most beautiful soft sheen to the face. I really, really like this one. This one makes me think a lot of the Milani Bella Ivory shadow. Now, the Bella Ivory shadow is going to be a little bit wider and a little bit more pigmented, but they're very, very similar. So if you have Bella Ivory in your collection already, you probably don't need Soft Pearl. Although I do really enjoy it, and I think it is one that I would highly recommend, even just as a face highlighter if you don't have it already. And by the way, the ones that I would recommend, I'm going to star in the description box down below, but this is one that I really enjoy. So the next shade we have is called Linen. Now this is number 20. This is Linen. This is a more matte shade. This is a very nice shade for just, it's very skin tone on me, so this is what I use. I'm actually wearing it today all over my eyes as a base. It doesn't really show up on me, and it's a little bit too deep just because it is skin tone to act as an actual highlight, but I do like it as a base. It's got a nice texture to it. It's very soft. It blends out beautifully. It's not extremely buttery or creamy, you know, creamy as a powder, but it is a nice, just simple shade for a base. And I think if you're somebody that is just looking for a nice matte brow bone shade, and you are deeper than I am to where this isn't going to be just straight up skin tone on you, I think this would be a really nice color. This one also reminds me very much of this one called Paris Beach from the L'Oreal Color Riche collection. This one's a little bit lighter on me, but you know, I kind of use them as the same. So yes, I do really like Linen. I do think it's a really nice color, but again, it's, if you already have something that you use as a lid, all over base lid color, you probably don't need it. But it is one that if you do not have this color, I would say is a really nice color to get. Not one of my favorites, but I would say it does perform really beautifully. The next shadow we have is number 30, and this one is called Seashell. So this one is a really, really light baby pink. It is a little bit on the powdery side. It's not one of my favorites. I have used it as an all over base color, and it does work when you're working with more cool pinky tone shadows, but it's not really one I would say you have to run out and get. Again, not a bad shadow, but definitely not one of the best in the collection. For me, I would say if you have the L'Oreal Color Riche single in Mademoiselle Pink, you're gonna probably be just fine. This one is definitely creamier. It's more pigmented, and I definitely prefer this one over Seashell. So if you have the L'Oreal version, you definitely do not need the Maybelline because it's going to be a step down. All right, the next shade we have is definitely one of my favorites out of the entire collection. This is number 40, Nude Glow. This is the first one I opened, and I've got to say, this is a absolutely stunning color. I have used this one on the eye. It's very beautiful. It reminds me of the shade Luscious from the Peach palette from Too Faced. So super beautiful. This is one that I would highly, highly recommend. I do have one shadow that's very similar to it. This is from Milani. This is the shade Bella Champagne, which is one of my favorites from that collection. It's going to be a little bit lighter, but it's going to be very much in that same vein. This one is just a little bit deeper and a little bit warmer. But again, if you have Bella Champagne, it is similar to Nude Glow, but I think Nude Glow is so pretty. I think it's definitely worth going out and picking up. The next shade we have is definitely not one of my favorites. This is number 5, Tastefully Taupe. I was really, really excited for this one after Nude Glow because I thought it would be the same kind of texture and pigmentation, and it's really not. It's got a lot of shimmer and not a lot of pigment holding it together. So it's definitely not one of my favorite taupey shades. This is one I would definitely pass on. But if you're looking for a good taupe in the drugstore, this one from L'Oreal is absolutely beautiful. It's a little bit more on the pinky side of taupe, but I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it is called Pain au Chocolat. Absolutely one of my favorites. Or this one from Milani is called Bella Taupe, and this is also a beautiful kind of satiny matte taupe shade that is really nice, really pigmented. So these I think are kind of all in the same range. You're getting that taupey quality. This one's definitely got a little bit more pink in it. It's going to have some more shimmer, but I think if you go, depending on which one you go with, the Pain au Chocolat from L'Oreal Color Riche or the Bella Taupe from the Milani Bella Eyes, either one is going to be much more useful than this one, than Tasteful Taupe from Maybelline. This is one I would definitely pass on. All right, the next one we have is really beautiful. It's very much like Nude Glow. This one is called the Glow Down. So this is going to be the same kind of texture and quality as Nude Glow. It's just going to be more of that kind of orangey gold. It's like a tangerine gold. It's really, really beautiful. Again, performs really beautifully on the eye. This one reminds me a little bit of this color from Color Riche called Sunset Sand. So it's going to be right along the same lines. The Sunset Sand is going to be definitely more orange, but these are going to be very, very similar. I mean, they're by no means dupes, but you're going to get that same kind of effect, that kind of orangey gold. Just depends on which one you want. I think if you have the Color Riche, you really don't need the Glow Down, but the Glow Down is very, very beautiful. And if you are a makeup lover, they are definitely different enough to where you can justify to yourself having them both, because who doesn't need a million beautiful golden lid shades? So yeah, so that's the one that I found that was most similar, even though this one is much darker and a little bit more orangey, but it does give you that same vibe. So this is definitely one I would recommend. Next, let's talk about this shade right here. This is a very interesting shade, and this is called Cool Cocoa. And this is like a neutral kind of mid-tone brown. And I don't know if you can tell, but it has pink glitter in it. So it's kind of a satiny texture with pink glitter, and it's just very, very interesting. It doesn't look like much in the swatch, but I have used this as a transition multiple times on my eye. It's beautiful. It blends out beautifully. It builds beautifully. So I really, really like the shade, and I think the pink glitter in it, which you really can't see, it doesn't really, you know, kind of relate on the eyes or translate to the eyes, but I think it adds a really pretty soft warmth to the shade that is just very, very unique, and I really do like this shade. Let me just show you how it builds, but it is gorgeous. Again, it's a soft, gorgeous, just beautiful, blendable shadow. I really, really do like this one. I do have a couple from Milani that are similar. This one is in Bella Cappuccino, and these are going to be just more like straight up satin shades. Let me get that open. But are going to be that same kind of mid-tone brown. One's a little bit more cool, one's a little bit more warm. They do, again, like the Cool Cocoa, they do build up really nicely. Going to be nice mid-tone transition shades. So this is not, if you have either one of these, this is going to give you kind of the same effect, but I think this is such a unique shade, and the way it performs on the eyes is really beautiful. But I did want to show you just some other options that you might have in your collection to give you kind of an idea of how they relate to these Milani kind of mid-tone transition shades. So again, that is Bella Cappuccino, and this one is Bella Cafe. And I do love both of these, but this one just, I don't know, it just gives me a little something extra. So this one is definitely one that I would recommend. The next shade we have is one of those shades that I love to see in the drugstore because it's so unique. This one is called Khaki Camo. And I actually have this underneath my eyes, kind of on my lower lash line, mixed in with the lighter purple today. And I really like this shadow. It's beautiful. It almost has a soft gold turn to it. And it's got a nice pigmentation to it. It blended out really, really well. It feels nice. It feels soft and buttery. So a really nice, interesting green camo shade. And I did want to compare this to the Bella Khaki. Now, this I think is going to be just about preference. The Bella Khaki definitely has more of a green to it, where the Khaki Camo is more on the brown side. This one's going to be brighter. This one's going to be a little bit more subtle. And the gold shift in this one is definitely more pronounced than in Khaki Camo. So if you have Bella Khaki and you like those types of colors, again, they are going to be different enough to where you can, you know, if you have both of them, I think they would work really well together, actually. I think this one's probably more of a true khaki and just a little bit more on the subtle side for somebody who wants to get into color. So again, this is definitely one that I really enjoy and would recommend picking up if you like that type of color. The next shade we have is this one right here, and this is called Forest Green. And this is a beautiful, just deep kind of foresty green shade. Now, this is one of those shades that I will say it is beautiful and looks beautiful on the finger, but when you swatch it out, you can tell that it's one of those shades that's gonna need some help. It's gonna need the help of a base or just to really build it up, to really have that color shine through. So it is a gorgeous, beautiful color. I really do enjoy it. It's kind of more of a cool toned, almost blue leaning green. Really, really like it. And I did want to compare it to the Bella Emerald from Milani. And I find that this one is going to be just a little bit more powdery than this one. They both need help. They both need to be built up. This one's going to be a little bit more warm toned, whereas Forest Green from Maybelline is going to be a little bit more on the cool side, but they are very similar. And then just to show you from the L'Oreal Color Riche, this is called Green Promenade. This one is definitely going to be where the Bella Emerald is more warm toned. The Green Promenade is definitely more on the cool tone. So just depending, if you have, you know, one of these, you are going to get a different effect out of this one. I think if you have the Bella Emerald, you probably don't need this one, but if you have Green Promenade, this would be, again, another really beautiful color to add to your collection that just offers a little bit something different. But I did just want to show you all of those in comparison. So that's the L'Oreal Green Promenade, that's the Maybelline Forest Green, and that is the Milani Bella Emerald. So next, let's talk about this one right here. This one is called Gold School. This reminds me of the shade Rich Bitch from the Jeffree Star Killer or Beauty Killer palette. It is chunky and difficult to work with. If you foil the shadow, a better result out of it, or if you use a glitter glue, but it's like that shadow. It's very gritty, it's very chunky, and it is, I was really hoping it was going to be just as beautiful and metallic and pigmented as the Glow Down and as Nude Glow, but it's definitely going to need some more help. I don't think it is as bad as the one in the Jeffree Star Beauty Killer palette, but I think there's so many beautiful gold eyeshadows out there that this one is going to just cause you a lot more work and a lot more time. So it's definitely not one that I would recommend, although when you do build it up, it is very beautiful. Next is the shade 100, and this is called Vanilla. This is a really pretty yet very, very powdery, shimmery white shade. Again, this one is going to be kind of like Gold School, except I think this one is easier to work with. This shade is a little particular. I found that I like to use it on my inner corner where it's really concentrated, or I like to use it as a highlight where it's very, very sheared out. I feel like if I use it anywhere in any kind of concentration in between that, it's not going to be as beautiful on the eye. I do really enjoy this shade. I think it's very beautiful. I will continue to use it as a highlight shade, but I don't think it's a run out must have, but I do really like it for highlight. The shade I want to compare it to is this one called Petite Pearl. This is from the Color Riche. Again, I think they're going to give you a very, very similar effect. The one from Maybelline is definitely more pigmented, but the one from L'Oreal you can build up, and it's going to have that same kind of beautiful pearly sheen, although this one might be slightly more yellow. So there are those in comparison. And this one, again, I would recommend it if you are looking for a highlighter, so I probably will put it in that category. So it's a recommendation with reservations that I do like it as a highlighting shade, but I do not necessarily like it as an eyeshadow unless you're using it just in the inner corner. All right, guys, the next color in this collection is called Night Sky, and please forgive my thumb. I lost this footage, so I'm filming on a different day, but this is the matte black in the collection. I've got to say, this matte black is not that impressive to swatch or look at, but it performs so beautifully on the eye. It is a little bit powdery, but it's really, really beautiful. It blends out gorgeously. I have little to no fallout with this color, and I have used it several times now. I am really, really impressed with this. I'm really impressed with how it builds up, and it's just one of the best black eyeshadows in the drugstore I've ever worked with. Really love this color. I highly recommend it, and I do want to share some comparisons with you just from some other brands that I have. So this one is from Milani, and this is the shade Bella Black. This one, mine is broken. This one is softer, but it is much more powdery. I don't know if you can tell. And it is harder to build up. It's not gonna have the same intensity as Night Sky. It's gonna have more fallout, and it's not quite as nice to work with. You can see that Night Sky is definitely a little bit more of a cooler black too, very subtly. But I like Bella Black, but this one I would pick hands down over this one any day of the week. There's also this black from the L'Oreal Color Riche collection called Noir C'est Noir. Now this one's going to be a little bit more creamy. Again, this is like that, these are like that ColourPop formula, but I do find that this one I do like. I just find that it doesn't transition as seamlessly on the eye, so it doesn't really relay the beautiful intensity of the swatch on the eye, and it's a little bit harder to blend out. It does build up nicely, but again, I definitely prefer Night Sky from Maybelline over this one from L'Oreal. And then I just have one more to show you, and this is the Wet n Wild eyeshadow single in Panther. This is a 99-cent shadow. I love this shadow. It is one of my go-tos. I use it all the time. And I would say this one is pretty comparable to the Maybelline. It probably helped if I was in frame. Sorry, guys. So pretty comparable to the Maybelline. It might be a little bit more on the gray side and not quite as deep as the Maybelline, but it builds up beautifully, blends out beautifully. So if you have Panther, you don't need Night Sky, but I think Night Sky is a great, great shadow. These two I would pick over the L'Oreal and the Milani any day of the week. So those are just the comparisons. So that's the Wet n Wild, the Maybelline Night Sky, the Bella Black from Milani, and the Noir C'est Noir from L'Oreal Color Riche. All right, the next shade we have is this one right here, and this is called Acid Rain. This is a beautiful shade. Like, you see that in the pan, and it is absolutely stunning color, so gorgeous. This one is very much like the Forest Green shade, where it's gonna need a little bit of help. It's gonna need a black base or a blue base, something to really help make it pop, but I do find that the shadow is blendable, and when you pack it on your lid, it's gonna have just a gorgeous color to it. It reminds me a lot of the blue from the Urban Decay Smoked palette that I just did a video with. I'll link that somewhere around here, but there are a couple blues I want to talk about in comparison. The first one is this L'Oreal Color Riche, and this is in the shade Grand Blue. So you can see they are very similar. I feel like the Maybelline has a little bit more of a vividness to it, and this one is a little bit more of a dusty, cool blue, if that makes any sense. But let me compare them. I do find that the L'Oreal performs nowhere near as beautifully as the Maybelline. You can build it up, but again, the intensity is not going to be there, even if you really pack it on the eye. Now there are two blues from the Milani collection that I want to talk about, and I'm going to find that these are going to have the same kind of problem. They're going to look beautiful in the pan and not quite have the intensity. This is Bella Navy in comparison, which again is going to be soft, it's going to be powdery, but that pigment really, really doesn't show through. It's going to need that help, and then again, it's not going to be as bright. And then on the other side of that blue spectrum, you have blue cobalt. And again, this is a beautiful blue, but it's not going to quite have, even though it's probably the most similar in tone, it's not going to have the depth, just that deep, beautiful depth of the Milani Acid Rain. So this is a shade that is really, really going to need some help, but I think it's such a beautiful, gorgeous shade in the drugstore as far as singles go that I would I would probably pick that one up, because if you put that over a black base or a blue base or a white base, anything like that, I think it'd be really beautiful over a black base. I think you're going to be really, really happy with that shade. And that one is Acid Rain. All right, the next shade we have is a beautiful teal color, and this one is called Teal the Deal. This is a really interesting color in the drugstore for it being a matte teal. I really like it. It's going to swatch very much like the other mattes in the collection, where it's going to seem a little dry and patchy in the swatch, but really when it if this one is like the fuchsia shade that I'm going to talk about later on in this video, it's going to be beautiful. If it performs like the black and the brown, which the swatch is indicative of that same kind of performance, this is going to be a really beautiful, interesting color in the drugstore, because you just don't see these matte, bright colors. And I really, really like this one. I love the way it builds up. The one I found closest to it would be this shade from L'Oreal called Teal Couture. This one is definitely going to be more of is definitely going to have more of a shine to it. It's going to have that gold turn to it. They are going to have similar tones, but one is matte, one is teal. So if you have one, you could definitely pick up the other. But if you don't want to pick up this one, but you like that color, this might be one that you have in your collection already that is very similar, which is also a very beautiful color. All right, guys, the next shade we have is called Made for Mocha. This is another one of my favorite shades. It's very much like Night Sky. It is a beautiful, deep, dark, kind of neutral toned brown. It's not going to swatch very well at all. So, but don't let that deter you. This shade builds up so beautifully and blends out so beautifully in the crease. I love it. I have minimal to no fallout with this shade. So another great shade from this brand that I highly recommend. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Milani really doesn't have a straight up brown that kind of compares to this. The one from L'Oreal that I would compare is this one called Quartz Fumé. And it's going to have that same tone. They're going to be very similar in tone. Again, the one from L'Oreal is going to have a shimmer and a sheen to it, where the one from Maybelline is going to be brown. This one is a little bit warmer, but if you have this one, you could definitely get the same type of vibe out of it. So that is Made for Mocha. All right, the next shade I want to talk about is probably the one I'm most impressed with in this entire collection, and this is called NY Silver. This shade is unbelievable for a drugstore shadow, for a $3 shadow. It is beautiful, it's creamy, it's pigmented. It is just absolutely stunning. See if it focused there. Such a beautiful, beautiful silver shade. Absolutely love that shade. The one I want to compare it to from Milani is called Bella Silver, and it's just not gonna kind of hold a candle. It's a little bit powdery, it's a little bit less, it's definitely less metallic. It does build up nicely, but it's just not going to have the one swipe opacity intensity of NY Silver. This one is definitely more in your face, more bold than this one. So if you are looking for a good drugstore silver, I would definitely recommend NY Silver. And I just also want to compare this to some higher end shades that I have. So I want to compare it to the shade Revolt from the Urban Decay Electric palette. So again, this one, the NY Silver, is absolutely just kicking the butt of that higher end silver. And then this silver from Urban Decay is absolutely amazing. The one called Shell Shock, this is the one I would compare it most to. So we close that so you can see that there. So that's Shell Shock, that's NY Silver, that's Bella Silver, and that's Revolt from the Electric palette. So this is the Vice 2 is a limited edition palette, but you can see how close they are and what an amazing dupe that is for that shadow. So such an amazing silver. Highly, highly recommend this shade. I say if you're going to pick up anyone, it's got to be this one and Nude Glow. These are so beautiful. Next, let's talk about this shade here. This is called this shade is called Purple Daze. This is a really pretty shade. I actually have used this. I used this in the transition in the look on my eye that you're seeing in the video today. It doesn't look like much. It's one of those shades that seems to be intentionally transparent and slightly translucent. So it's just a very, very soft kind of, it's a very soft satin Purple. Again, I use this as a transition shade today. I have used it on the lid and I didn't really like it on the lid. I don't feel like it popped enough. I feel like if you're going to put that on the lid, it's going to need a white base. But if you love those beautiful purple eyeshadow looks, this is going to be such a beautiful transition shade. It really blended out beautifully today. I really enjoyed it, and I love using different shades, different tones of transition shades. It doesn't always have to be brown or beige. You know, use a purple transition, because this is actually really quite lovely in that respect. And the one I wanted to compare it, that I felt like it was most similar to, is this shade right here called Bella Violet from Milani. So you can see that the Bella Violet from Milani has that same kind of transparency, translucence. This one's definitely more of a cool tone purple. This is more of a warm, you know, lavendery purple, but just the very same similar effect. So if you have Bella Violet from Milani, you probably don't need Purple Daze from Maybelline, but if you're interested in that type of shadow, I think both of these are actually really beautiful options. I'd probably go with this one just because I enjoy warm tones more than cool tones. So again, it's just about preference, but Purple Daze is really pretty. The next shade we have is called Humdrum Plum. This is another really pretty shade. I do feel like, hi Peta. Pete, are you helping? I do feel like with this shade, it's got a little bit more fallout. It is really pretty. I do have it on my lid today, the outer portion of my lid. Pete is helping today. But I do feel like you're gonna want to foil it to get, you know, less fallout. So it is really pretty, but I do feel like you need to foil it to get the most intensity out of it and to avoid fallout, but really pretty. And it does remind me of this shade from L'Oreal called Violet Butte. Peta Cat. This one's going to be a little bit more, I never pay attention to him, can you tell? Come here. So this one is going to be a little bit more warm, and this one's definitely going to be more cool toned, but again, they're going to give you very similar effects. This is another one of the matte shades that I really like, and this one is called Fierce Fuchsia. This is a really pretty shade. I have used this one, and I've used it as a transition shade, and I've got to say, I was really impressed with it. It's one of those matte shades that you do, or you can build up, but I think like the Purple Daze shade, it is so pretty. It is so pretty as a transition shade, which is what I would use it for, and that's why I would recommend it. So it's not one of the shades that I would say you need to rush out and get, but if you like a lot of those pinky, or those pinky shades, you know, red tone shades, or looks on the eye, this would make a beautiful, gorgeous transition shade just for the way it blends out and can build up on the eye. I'm really impressed with this one as well. And I do have one that kind of compares to that. This is called Bella Rouge from Milani. This one is going to be more shimmery, where this one is definitely matte, but it's going to give you that they're almost exactly the same in tone. Bella Rouge is definitely a little bit warmer, but very similar. So if you have this one, you might not need this one, but this one again is matte. It's one of those fun matte colors in the drugstore that you don't necessarily see all the time. All right guys, we are down to the last shade, and this one is called Raw Ruby. These are one of those shades again that I'm not really a big fan of. It's a matte black with sparkles in it. You guys kind of know how I feel about this. I will say this one is probably better than most that I've dealt with in the past, but again, it's just not one of my favorites. I'm just not a fan of these types of shades because I don't feel like the glitter really transitions very well to the eye. This one you can kind of dust it off a little bit, and as you can see, the glitter and the sparkle still is in there, so it definitely hangs out pretty well, but again, just not one of my personal favorites. So, but again, very interesting color for the drugstore. All right guys, so those were all of the swatches of all 20 of the new Maybelline Expert Wear shadows. So again, overall, I think the price point is really good on these. You can get them from $2.50 to $4, again, depending on where you pick them up. I think the packaging is really nice. I have noticed that it's very easy for these for it to kind of pop off on the back, but you just have to kind of push it back in. And they do come with a sponge applicator, which even though I don't use these, not everybody has 5 million brushes like I do. So I appreciate the fact that they put a little compact applicator in there without making it a big thing. I think the packaging is really nice on these as well. As far as the color selection, I think it is absolutely fantastic. I think there's a wonderful array of colors in here that you don't always see in the drugstore. especially in the matte range with that matte teal and that matte fuchsia, which I think are great. And I think some of the shimmers are just absolutely beautiful. And I think it's just overall, there are some shades that I definitely love more than others. There are some that are just a, you know, big dud for me. And then there are some I think are just would be wonderful in anybody's collection. So I think I'm really, really impressed overall with this collection, with the color range, with the packaging, with the price point, as well as the formula of the shadows and how they perform. And like I said, I've swatched all of these. I swatched all of them before I used them on my eyes. I've used them on my eyes 3 or 4 times now. I've used almost every single color in the range. And I've got to say, I'm really, really impressed with how they wear. They are going to wear throughout the day without, in my experience, without any kind of issue. They don't crease, they don't fade. I'm really impressed with these shadows. I think that if you are somebody who is looking for a specific type of shadow or a specific color, or, you know, maybe you just want to expand your drugstore eyeshadow collection, I think this is a great collection to do it with. I hope the comparisons were helpful for you. And yeah, let me know if you've picked up any of these, which ones you're loving, which ones you're interested in, which ones have just been duds for you. I always love to hear your guys' opinions. But thank you so much for hanging out and talking about makeup with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Have a rockin' week, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.